everybody, it's SunshineRiver and it's really late. It's like 1:45, so I may be filming kind of into the next day. Today's the 15th of July, 2016. Tomorrow, so it might go a little into the 16th. But I wanted to film this video, so over the past several days I've been kind of compiling my thoughts about Scarlet and Scarlet the book. So I'm going to be giving kind of a book talk about it like I did with Cinder, and just obviously because this is what I did with Cinder, I am including spoilers in this book talk, so obviously do not watch if you don't want spoilers. So, I've read a lot of series such as the Divergent series, the Match trilogy, and the Grisha trilogy, where I've liked the sequel less than the original, and I understand it's hard for authors to write a sequel that lives up to the expectations of an amazing first book. However, I can honestly say that Scarlet was better than I expected it to be. After Cinder blew me away, I knew there was a chance Scarlet would be a letdown, but when I read it, I was delighted to find it underestimated Marissa Meyer. Like Cinder, Scarlet has an excellent blend of mystery, adventure, and romance. Also, like Cinder, Scarlet is pretty loosely based on the fairy tale it corresponds with, so there are lots of fresh ideas in it. I have so much fun making predictions. Something in Scarlet is that the perspectives of the book switch around a lot as opposed to in Cinder, which was mostly Cinder and some Kai and just a bit of Dr. Erland, but Scarlet has Scarlet, Carswell, Cinder, Kai, and even a tiny bit of Lavanna. Also, Scarlet is a little more violent than Cinder, well, with the pack fighting and the big attack near the end. So yeah. As you know, if you watched my Cinder book talk, with Cinder, I very quickly figured out that Cinder was Celine. However, with Scarlet, I didn't make any big deductions very long before the characters made them. I actually was pretty blind to the fact that Wolf was going to turn Scarlet into the pack, and I only realized he was going to right before they walked into the opera house. So, I also liked figuring out more about the world in 126 TE. One thing I was speculating about is what languages are spoken in the world of 126 TE. After Cinder came out of the tank, she lived in New Beijing, and Thorn's from the American Republic, and Scarlet lives in France, so already that's three very different places, but Cinder and Thorn don't seem to have issues understanding each other, and when they arrive at Michel Benoit's farm, they don't worry about her understanding them. Thorn says hello on Scarlet page 326. And additionally, Lunars have no trouble understanding Earthens. For example, Cress and Cinder understand each other perfectly well on Cinder pages 317 to 323, where they were communicating over the decom chip. And so, like, sort of Chinese naming customs, I don't know very much. I'm assuming their naming customs are used, like, for example, on Scarlet page 286, they're used on Adrian Pearl. And also, French words are sprinkled throughout interactions in France. For example, like Scarlet refers to her grandmother as grand-mère, and Thorn says to Emilie, bonjour mademoiselle, and Emilie says bonjour Scarling. So I'm guessing that there's one universal language used by both Olive Earth and Luna, because everyone pretty much seems to understand each other. But other languages are occasionally used, so I'm guessing that there's, one main language, but other languages are still in use a little bit. So I'm sure it's very efficient that everyone can understand each other, and it works well so that many characters can interact in the Lunar Chronicles. But as a foreign language enthusiast, it makes me kind of sad to think of a world where foreign language barely exists. But I think that in 126 TE there is some foreign language. So now on to kind of the characters. Scarlet is a very quick to anger, stubborn, independent kind of person, which didn't exactly endear me to her, but I was so happy that she stood up for Cinder, such as in the Ryu Tavern. And, however, when on Scarlet pages 428 to 430, Scarlet was attacking Cinder about it being her fault that Lavanna would take over Earth, I got very frustrated with Scarlet. She was making judgments before knowing the full story. The thing is, Scarlet herself is actually against people making quick judgments. She quote-unquote said, "People are just so quick to accuse and criticize, but they don't know what Cinder's been through and what led her to do the things she did." She said this on Scarlet page 164. And she's being such a hypocrite in the scene where she attacks Cinder, because first she argues against people quickly judging or criticizing, and then she judges Cinder without even knowing the full story. Because the thing is, Scarlet doesn't know that Cinder didn't even find out she was Princess Celine until several days prior to the events of Scarlet. And I do agree that Cinder could have gone to Africa right away instead of going to Europe to find Dr. Erland so that he could try to instate her as Lunar Queen and stuff. But, like, Cinder did just get her freedom. And how would Scarlet like to have the world's safety resting on her shoulders and to finally get freedom only to have to give it up? So I feel like Scarlet was being thoughtless, hypocritical, and really frustrating. So as you can see, I was really annoyed with Scarlet for how she attacked Cinder like that, and I think it was wrong for her, but I don't hate Scarlet. Don't get the wrong impression there. I very much admired how she stood up for Cinder on Scarlet pages 17 to 18, 164 to 165, and she clearly loved her grandmother very much. Besides that, a good quality Scarlet exhibited was her determination in trying to find her grandmother. The thing is, I pity Scarlet a lot, and her grandmother's death was very painful for me to read and think about because I felt so bad for Scarlet and because her grandmother was clearly loving and selfless. And then there was how Wolf turned Scarlet in. He later saved her, but she still had to go through thinking he betrayed her. And so I guess I feel very bad for Scarlet, but I don't quite admire her as much as I do Cinder. Wolf turned out to be an observant, kind, and selfless character. His motives throughout Scarlet were hard to read for me, but he turned out to really care for Scarlet and was selfless to risk his own safety and give her the ID chip to get her out of the cell and warn her about the attack. So personally, I'm guessing that when Wolf first met Scarlet, he really was planning to turn her into the pack, because like since he was 12, he's been working for the pack. But as he got to know her, I'm guessing like he began to have feelings for her and decided he didn't want to turn her in. So the reader doesn't see much of Michelle Benoit firsthand, but from what Scarlet says, she seems to have been very strong, hardworking, and loving grandmother. And also, she must have been very selfless to risk her own safety by hiding Princess Celine for the well-being of so many others. Similarly to with Michelle Benoit, the reader doesn't see a lot of Luke, Scarlet's father, firsthand, but again gets an impression of him from Scarlet. From her, Luke seems to have been a negligent, selfish, and cowardly father. So Cinder returns still sarcastic as ever and sassy at times. At first she decided to go to Europe to put off going to Africa to meet up with Dr. Erland and try to overthrow Levana because that would require Cinder to give up her freedom. So I think it's understandable that Cinder didn't want to give up her freedom right as she got it. And in fact, something I really admire about Cinder is her selflessness. Like on Scarlet page 433, actually I predicted that Cinder was going to decide to fight Levana, because I just knew Cinder would do the right thing, sacrificing her freedom. She's kind of selfless like that, like how she went to the ball to warn Kai. Like on Cinder page 55, Cinder was willing to turn herself in to be quarantined so that she wouldn't infect others. And on Cinder page 202, Cinder shielded Nancy the android's body with her own so that the android, along with the information she was carrying, would get safely to Kai. And on Cinder page 227, Cinder asked Kai to dance with Peony if she survived the plague, like Cinder was thinking of Peony, not herself. And on Cinder page 346, Cinder was willing to tell Kai she was cyborg so that she could pull the decom chip out of her calf compartment and show him it for the good of everyone on Earth. Another admirable trait about Cinder is her integrity. She always feels guilty about using her glamour. So actually, on Scarlet page 64, when Kai was thinking about Cinder, he mentioned how she was so authentic and didn't pretend to be something she wasn't. So then he thought about how he's confused as to whether Cinder's really the opposite, a deceptive lunar. But the thing is, Cinder really is authentic. She doesn't like to use her glamour and doesn't like to pretend to be things she's not. So Carswell was quite cocky and also flirtatious. Actually, his arrogance was kind of amusing. I liked how Kurzweil wasn't a very prejudiced character. He wasn't against Cinder and was fine working with her despite her cyborg and lunar status. And on Scarlet, page 157, he flirted with Aiko even though she's a spaceship's control system. Which I like Aiko a lot too. As I said in my Cinder book talk, she really cracks me up. When she said Scarlet and Wolf are saying gushy things in the galley on Scarlet page 449, that was very funny. And it also made me laugh when Aiko flirted with Thorn on Scarlet page 157. They both like Kurzweil, Thorn, and Aiko. Both sort of have the same flirtatious way about them. It's kind of funny to hear them interact and stuff. So, Kai considers himself selfish for wanting Cinder to escape rather than be caught, which he believes would be for the good of the Eastern Commonwealth. However, Kai proves to actually be selfless when he decides to marry Levana, which will cause him to have a miserable life for what he thinks is the good of the Commonwealth. I mean, the thing is, neither Cinder's capture nor Kai's marriage to Levana would actually benefit the Commonwealth or the other Earthen countries, but Kai believes they would. And on another note, I was delighted to find out that Kai wasn't prejudiced against Cinder for her cyborg status. It turns out that Kai is prejudiced against lunars, but that's a more understandable prejudice. Well, not all lunars are bad. They can brainwash people, which is very scary, so I can see how he's prejudiced against them. And on Cinder page 242, Dr. Erland, a lunar, even said how he believes the prejudices humans have against lunars are justified, given Earth's history with Luna. Levana continued to be a mysterious, scary, and, of course, cruel villain. So I talked quite about the theme of times to lie in my Cinder book talk, but I'm going to keep readdressing it, probably in the book talk for each book in the Luna Chronicles. So here are some instances in Scarlet that point to lying and deceit should be avoided, but are at times necessary and justifiable. That's the theme that I noticed. So on Scarlet pages 60 to 61, Cinder and Kurzweil Thorn are escaping prison. Cinder uses her glamour on some workers and feels bad about it. So in this case, I believe Cinder's use was justified because she needed to escape so that she can try to overthrow Levana. Cinder is kind to not like controlling people though. On Scarlet pages 64 to 65, Kai thinks about how Cinder lied to him about her identity, and he's extremely upset. This demonstrates the idea that deception should be avoided if possible. As I said in my Cinder book talk, I believe it was Cinder's personal choice to make whether to tell Kai about her status or not, so I believe it was justified. In my Cinder book talk, I said that maybe Kai wouldn't have been interested in Cinder if he'd known from the beginning about her cyborg status. So on Scarlet pages 64 to 66, it's revealed that Kai wasn't turned off by Cinder's cyborg status, but it is her lunar glamour that repulses him and makes him question everything he thought he knew about her. So now I'm thinking that if Kai had known Cinder was lunar from the beginning, he would likely have not been interested in her. Like I talked about in that Cinder video, I think Kai would likely have met Cinder anyway because he was looking for Celine. But I don't know if he would have gotten to know her on his personal level. And again, I addressed this in my Cinder book talk, but only back then I thought that Kai would have been turned off by Cinder's cyborg status too. And now I think it's just her lunar status that scares him. So on Scarlet pages 173 to 174, Scarlet acts like she's interested in Ran and right afterwards feels bad for having manipulated him. So this is an example of unnecessary deception and Scarlet wishes she hadn't done it. She also observes that her father often manipulates people and she doesn't want to be like him. The fact that Scarlet feels bad about deception reminds me of how Cinder feels bad about brainwashing people. On Scarlet pages 196 to 197, it's a very important scene for Cinder as she plays around with glamoring a cyborg hand into being a human one. She realizes she'd never want to be like Queen Levana. She'd never want to be that kind of a deceitful person. So Cinder thinks about how tricking everyone into believing she's not cyborg would be unjustified and the kind of thing Queen Levana would do. So again, she's got high moral standards and integrity, and that's something I really admire about her. So, on Scarlet pages 230 to 231, this is another section that's very important to the theme of Times to Lie. Scarlet finds out her grandmother kept the secret of her grandfather being the lunar Dr. Logan Tanner. And Scarlet feels so betrayed by her grandmother because she thought she and her grandmother never lied to each other, and she's horrified to find out her grandmother kept her in the dark about such a big secret. So I'm thinking, though, maybe her grandmother had to keep the secret to avoid people from learning about her ties with Celine. So I believe it was a justified deception. But it does show how betrayed people feel when they realize someone's lied to them about, like, a big thing and stuff, especially when they did not think someone was lying to them. So, on Scarlet pages 279 to 282, Scarlet realizes that Wolf is still a member of the pack, and she feels horribly betrayed. Of course, the pack works for an evil cause, so it wasn't justified for Wolf to betray Scarlet. But, I mean, Wolf didn't want or choose to be in the pack, and he was instead forced to be in it, which we find out more about in Marissa Meyer's short story, The Queen's Army. So besides that, Wolf later says he felt bad for lying on Scarlet page 338, and he betrays the pack and helps Scarlet by giving her the ID chip to break out of her cell with and warning her about the attack. So Wolf clearly recognizes that his deception was unjustified and feels horrible about it. On Scarlet pages 333 to 335, Cinder thinks of how easy it would be to glamour Emily into knowing Cinder and Thorn wouldn't harm her. And Cinder feels guilty about it, but ultimately decides to glamour Emily because it's for the greater good. So the funny thing is about this one, at first I was thinking, no, Cinder, please don't glamour her. And but then when I read the part where on Scarlet page 334, Cinder was thinking, but if controlling someone were for the greater good. And then I realized, of course, like, that's what I wrote this. I actually, for school, I wrote a whole essay about times to lie. And so my previous thought about how Cinder shouldn't glamour Emily was actually going against myself. So in my opinion, now thinking it over again, Cinder is completely justified to use glamour so that Emily will impart any information which could help save the world from Levana that she has. So unfortunately, it turns out Emily doesn't have a ton of information. She has a little on Scarlet, but not that much information. But I mean, Cinder had no way of knowing that before, so it was justified for her to glamour Emily just in case Emily had important, valuable information. So in several instances, Cinder uses her glamour in order to keep herself and Thorn from getting caught. She uses glamour to disguise herself and Thorn in the mechanic shop on Scarlet pages 346 to 348. She uses glamour to buy the power cell, which will ultimately keep Thorn and herself in the air and away from captors on Scarlet page 348. And she uses glamour to disguise Thorn and herself in the tavern on Scarlet pages 350 to 352. And she uses glamour to get the police she tries to get the police to let Thorn and her go on Scarlet page 355, though that glamour ends up not working. But if Cinder is caught, she'll be handed over to Levana and executed, so the use of glamour in all those times that I just listed is justified because it allows Cinder to be able to potentially overthrow Levana and claim her throne. Okay, so although Cinder herself doesn't want to be the Lunar Queen and did avoid Africa and Dr. Erland so that she could prolong him having to try to instate her as Lunar Queen, I believe that deep down in the instances Cinder used glamour to keep herself and Thorn hidden and to help her and him avoid capture, I believe in those instances she had it in her mind that she needed to save the Earth and become the Lunar Queen. So, and like I said, I knew that when the time came, Cinder would decide to rise to the challenge. And so I believe that when Cinder used her glamour, she knew she would be ultimately helping everyone. So I believe it was justified of her to use glamour in those instances. So on Scarlet pages 406 to 407, Cinder uses her glamour to manipulate a pack member into carrying Wolf and Thorn onto Thorn's ship. So I believe this is a justified use of Cinder's glamour because, like those many other instances, kind of the thing I just talked about, she has to stay alive as she's Princess Celine, and she has the potential to save Earth and Luna. So plus, in this instance, she's also trying to help Wolf and Thorn and Scarlet all get away safely with her, so it's for other people too. So that was, I know it was long, but those were the thoughts I had both on, just general thoughts, on characters, on the theme of Times to Lie. And so overall I thought Scarlet was excellent. So one thing I'm a little nervous about is that I'm not sure how much mystery there will be in Cress. So as I've said, I love the mysteries and plot reveals in Cinder and Scarlet, but I feel like a lot of mysteries have been solved now, like Cinder's origin, how the Pax and Scarlet's family tie in with Celine, and so I'm hoping Cress brings in some new intrigue and mystery, but overall I'm really excited to start Cress and find out. I love the first 2 books, and yeah, so Sunshine, I will tell you now, it's 12:10, almost 12:09, almost 12:10 a.m. So, yep, I did. It is now July 16th. So, see you next time. Hopefully, you will see me in a Cress book talk. I know the Cinder one went up a while before the Scarlet one, and I filmed it a while before the Scarlet one. Honestly, I was busy ending school, and at the start of summer I was busy a bit too, catching up on other things, but it's not because, like, I didn't want to read it, of course. As you've heard, I loved Scarlet. It's just that I had been busy, so I had to delay the reading and the analysis for a little while. But yeah, so see you. SunshineRiver signing out.